Hey guys, this is Sarah Zastro from Cultivate Balance. Today we're talking about a little bit different of a topic. I learned this kind of concept from John C. Maxwell. You might know him or have heard of him before. He's sort of a pioneer in the leadership and development, personal growth world. So he was talking about the difference between traction and distraction through crisis. So this topic just hit me as so profound today, and so I want to discuss it with you guys. So think about traction. When we have traction, what that means when we think about the traction in our lives, we are making progress, things are going well, we are sticking to a schedule for the most part, we feel in control, we have traction, we're moving forward in a orderly fashion, whatever that looks like for you. And if you've got kids at home, that's probably orderly is kind of a loose term, right? And then what does it mean to be distracted? We all think about distraction as it comes in terms of social media, in terms of screen time, in terms of sort of burying ourselves in things that are not necessarily healthy and productive, okay? And again, this is totally subjective, whatever that means for you. Now, isn't it true that traction and distraction are the opposite of each other? So I want you to think about this like this. If traction, think about we're walking upstream, up a river. Traction, your boots are hitting the ground, you're walking up the current, you're making progress in a somewhat orderly fashion. And distraction is that river wipes you out at the knees and you lose your balance and you're flailing downstream. Now think about if that river were the coronavirus. This past week, we were, in the past couple of weeks, we were making traction, we were making progress. This coronavirus came in, took us out at the knees, and it caused us to become distracted, okay? Now, there's another really interesting article about that change going from traction to distraction. And they didn't put it in these terms, but the change that we went through to go from our normal lives to this sort of quarantine, self-quarantine, social distancing thing that we're doing right now is actually causing us grief. We are in essence grieving our old lifestyle. And depending on what your job situation is, your financial situation, you may be grieving, the loss of a job, the loss of an income, the loss of stability for a lot of people. And then depending on what your home life looks like, there could be a lot of layers to this. And so what I encourage you to do is to think about this coronavirus as that river that wiped you out at the knees. Now, if you've ever went fishing before, kind of like we go fly fishing sometimes in the summertime. So one time we were fly fishing and I bent down to get my lure unstuck and my waders filled with water and it took me down river. I know, rookie mistake. I know. But what you do in fly fishing is you plant your feet and you stand up. And what I did is I started then running because it kind of, you plant your feet and then it whips you up and then you have to do something, take a step, or else you'll fall right down and keep on going down river. So what you sort of do, plant your feet, step up, and then start running downstream until you get the hang of it, till you get the feeling of that current, and then you can plant your feet, stop, find dry ground, empty your waders, and turn around. So that's kind of what we're doing right now. This is such a great example of this. So we are downstream, our waders are full, we are distracted. This coronavirus took us out at the knees, okay? And that's how a lot of people feel right now. That's certainly how I feel. I feel completely out of control. I feel like my emotions are everywhere. I don't have any clarity, no certainty, and that is stressful because as humans, we don't really like that. We like a pattern, we like an agenda, and we like to be able to account on things, okay? So I feel like I'm just flailing down river. Now, eventually, what we need to do is plant our feet and start running with the current. Okay, now this is scary, and this is going to look different for everybody. But what this is going to look like in my life, and you get to decide what it looks like in your life, is a new routine. I'm a very routine-based person. If you're not, totally fine. That looks like a whole lot of grace. I'm going to give myself grace for the mistakes, the fact that I've been sleeping way more than I should, the fact that I've been eating lots of unhealthy foods, the fact that I'm coping with this in unhealthy ways. And so I'm going to give myself grace for that. I'm going to plant my feet, create a new routine, and start running down river. Okay, and then eventually, as things slow down, as we reach the peak, you'll start to slow down and to plant your feet and to find higher ground. Okay, I just love this example. I hope it makes sense. Let me know. But I hope you guys can see the difference between traction and distraction and how that relates to the coronavirus, how it relates to your daily routine, how that can be causing some grief right now. And I think that what we need is a whole lot of grace and to establish some new routines, some new boundaries. I know that Brene Brown, you guys know that I love her. So she has a new podcast out this week, and she talked about FFTs. And what a FFT is a effing first time. Okay. And the reason we call it a effing first time is because effing first times suck. Okay, they do. We don't like to be new at things. We don't like to try new things. We don't like to be bad at things. And we don't like the uncomfortableness of trying new things. Okay, so what that means and what Brene suggests in her podcast, if you guys haven't listened, go have a listen. It's called Unlocking Us. It's phenomenal. What she suggests is to admit that it's an FFT. This is an FFT. Global pandemic, it's my first time. I'm a newbie at that. Probably you are too, right? Okay, right? And so it's an FFT. It's a first time, and I feel uncomfortable, and I'm willing to admit that. That is okay. And then we're going to put some perspective in it. We're going to regroup. We're going to start running downstream. And then the third step, both with Brene Brown and with our fishing example, is that we're going to plant our feet. We're going to reframe our expectations. We're going to create a new agenda so that we can move forward. And then eventually we will find higher ground, climb out of the river, let all the water out of our waders, and we will go back to go back to normal life, find a new normal. Again, that's going to depend on your situation. But what I encourage you guys is to hang in there. Think about this as distraction and think about planting your feet and starting to run down river. Go with the current for a while, and then eventually, after you feel like you're ready, plant those feet with a whole lot of grace and some prayer and a whole lot of Skype phone calls to your friends and people you haven't seen in a while. We are going to be okay. You guys have a good day, good week, and see ya.